I think what WWE needs to do is invest, I think, a little more. What stood out to me, and we'll get into it a bit in the Women's Rumble, is they got to invest more in the characters and really getting them established, because
Yeah.
these women are talented. You know, this is
Yes.
not an indictment of a lack of talent. They are talented. The problem is, I don't think some of the characters are fully fleshed or really established for the larger audience to react to. And so,
Mhm.
you know, and it's hard. It's not an easy thing to do. You can't just snap your fingers and make people care about everyone. But at the same time, when you have people coming out and the crowd just like completely nonplussed by them coming out, like something has to change there, you know?
Yeah.
Some of the men that came out that got a reaction didn't get a reaction just because of their character, but they got a reaction because of kind of the story behind it too. Like there was a story going on.
Yeah.
And that to me is what we need to have more of, you know, is to get, you know, I think there's still a huge missed opportunity with someone like a Shayna Baszler, where if they could just get her married up with like a Heyman or some mouthpiece, she could be a super badass. And
Mm-hmm.
when her music hits, it means something. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I just think, you know, seeing how the crowd was there's just room for improvement, I think, you know, for WWE to do on the women's side of things.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously now we're officially into talking about the Women's Rumble match. It's to kind of respond / retort to
Yes, sir.
what you said. Yeah, no, totally. I think WWE is at a point now where they may have to consider adding some TV time. You've got a 3-hour Monday night show. You got a 2-hour Friday night show. Might it be time for that Friday show to become a 3-hour show?
Can I retort to your retort?
Okay.
They have Triple H has gone on record and said as saying booking a 3-hour show is extremely difficult.
Yeah.
I think they should take the 3 hours and I know they're trying to do this roster split, but do something different and use those 3 hours to give the women more time or to push the women more.
Well, but that's what I mean is I think that, so my contention is, and I think you're in agreement, it's not a matter of like the women are less talented.
Yes, right.
I think the fact is that you're only going to get these women the reps that they need in front of a crowd, in front of a TV crowd, and putting some real muscle behind the story. Now, I understand we are still coming out of the creative death valley that was the previous regime.
Yeah.
And it takes time. It's taken a lot of time. And there's still some things that I think, and we'll talk about it in the match after this one, that I think they are still trying to figure out how to turn around.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think they need to start putting more of these women on TV. They need to start putting more of them in storylines. They need to put more storyline muscle behind them. But at the same time, I don't know how you necessarily do that given some of the constraints. Now, we look at the last couple of weeks, and I kind of been spot watching some of the shows when I can, because honestly, I've been kind of getting into some of the stories going on, and you know, I just haven't had a lot of things that I was watching. So hey, why not watch a little wrestling? And I could have done with one less Carlito / LWO versus Santos / you know, what is it, Phantasma or what?
Legados del Fantasma.
Yes, thank you. I knew I was going to butcher that, so I didn't even really want to attempt it. But they've been all over TV the past couple weeks. One less match, and work some ladies in. You know, get something going. And then again, the Carter and what's the face team, the ladies tag champs that lost.
Oh yeah, Katana and Casey or something like that.
Yeah. But that's the only tag teams you've seen. I saw them like twice over the last couple of weeks, and I get it. But it's like, who else is there?
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that we have to look at too is they're missing Charlotte Flair. So obviously you're not going to have Rhea Ripley or Io Sky, your two champs, wrestling in the Rumble matches. At least the odds were against it.
Yeah.
So you take away the two people who you've been like, okay, and they're kind of the top draws. And after that, you kind of don't have a wild card.
Mm-hmm.
The men's roster has a couple of guys who can be wild cards. CM Punk, Cody Rhodes, like they don't have a belt, and they can kind of be mixed in here and there in the Rumble, and you're not really sure what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Charlotte Flair could have been that person.
Yeah.
She ain't.
Yeah.
And it's because it's not a matter of talent. It's a matter of how that talent is well practiced and well known by the audience. And it's not so much the main event talent, because a lot of the upper echelon ladies. And in fact, some of them have been there kind of long enough that I don't know if they necessarily know what to do with them right now. I'm talking about Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair, because they've kind of been in neutral for a while.
Yeah.
It's that upper mid card level of like the next folks who are going to get over. That's where they're really hurting, because they don't have the experience and or the recognition.
Yeah.
So that's where I think the weakness is.
Although now that I think about it, for the women, they don't have a United States or an Intercontinental Championship.
And that's the other thing. I think that
they need a mid-card belt is what they need.
They need to bring back the TV championship and make it a women's only belt. So it'll be the women's television championship, and it gives you a mid-card belt. Granted, not every feud needs a belt, but it helps sometimes to add some legitimacy, elevate, and to kind of delineate, like, okay, this person, they're not quite here, but they're right around here. They're not down here. It gives you another thing for people to be going after.
Yeah.
And it could turn into almost like an intercontinental championship, where that is the workman's or the workwoman's belt.
Right.
That's the worker's belt. And that could be a thing. And I think that could work out really well.
Yeah. I agree.
That was another thing I thought about, just today. I'm like, oh yeah, there's really 3 belts in the women's division.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
and 2 of them are world titles. So it's like, unless you're battling for the world title, you have no ability to really establish yourself. And, there's the tag titles, but that's a different, format or a different style of wrestling that doesn't establish you as a single star. Like I'm looking at my list here, because I kept track of the order of who came in and who was eliminated. Like Indy Hartwell, for example. Like, I know of her because 2 or 3 years ago in NXT, they did a really good angle with her, Candice LeRae, Johnny Gargano. They had this faction called The Way, and this one guy, Dexter Loomis, who was kind of this like psycho or something. But they had like this great like story build up to Dexter and Indy becoming a couple and all this sort of thing, and the fans were into it. And I don't care that that's what they did, but it's like it got fans into it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And they did something that locked them in. But she comes out to zero reaction, and it's like, yeah,
she ain't been on TV.
Why do I? Right, she hasn't been on TV. Why
I
do
didn't
I
even
care
realize
about
she was
her?
on the main roster.
Right,
like I was up for, because I remember her, I think, from a previous Rumble.
Right, but I see, like, if they had a mid card belt both on Raw and on SmackDown, then you have an ability to get the Zoe Starks, or the Zelina Vegas, or the Minchins, or
or even Shayna Baszler,
right?
Give her that belt,
right,
and then have her defend it like Gunther does,
right?
Like, you don't come out. Go ahead and fight for the champion. Go ahead and fight for the championship.
But,
that's for the people who want to be a sports entertainer.
Right.
You want to come after me,
right?
You better be ready for a fight.
But give them the time to do the things that like a Gunther does. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing. Gunther gets mic time. Gunther gets ring time. Like, that's what they got to do. And could they expand SmackDown to 3 hours? Sure. But I really think, like, if they just take what they're doing on Raw, if they took one of those hours and really dedicated it to the ladies, I think they do a great job of, like, I think they'd be able to add some depth to the roster and really build them out.
Yeah. I think it comes down to just there's a lot of storyline muscle, creative muscle being put towards creating great storylines and let's face it, for what is, I think, a lot of people see as the money makers of WWE. The Roman Reigns, the Randy Ortons, the CM Punks, the Cody Rhodes, all that. And hey, I get it. You're trying to make money, and you figure that's what we have to attack first. Fine. I think they're getting around to that with the ladies, and I say that because of the Rhea Ripley Becky Lynch interaction, which was a very interesting promo a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
Where it's not just all bluster. You actually have like someone who has been to the top of the mountain, one of the most recognizable stars you have, and they're saying, you might be better than me.
Right.
A character who would never admit something like that before.
Yep.
You know, and I was like, ooh, that's kind of cool. Now you're taking me in a different direction. Almost like the Cody CM Punk promo from this past Monday of, you know, I'm actually more CM Punk than you are. I'm more American Dream than you are.
Yep.
Like, it's okay. This is kind of cool. So I think they're working their way over there. It just needs to be more. And I'm hopeful that as they seem to be hitting a creative stride with a lot of the men's storylines, that it's going to start filtering into the women's division, and we're going to start seeing a lot more happen there. And I think getting seeing how some of the ladies were received and what they were able to do in the Rumble, like a Jade Cargill, I think all of a sudden now that is a huge, huge asset to them in terms of like, okay, we can go a lot of different directions this way.
Yep.
So I did this ups and downs thing, mostly just for the
which
Rumble
I like
matches, because it was like there's so much to talk about. We could get into like doing like a oh my gosh, that thing's, just put a straw in it. Just put a straw in it, you'd be fine. We could go into like our old Battlestar Galactica thing where essentially we're going scene by scene by scene by scene and just replaying the thing for you. But some ups for me. First and foremost, Jade Cargill debut was holy crap, so good. So good.
One thing they do well
reaction
is not talking about someone who's around so you forget about them. And then doing something like this, like I did not and I didn't see it in any of the websites either. No one said anything about Cargill being a part of Royal Rumble, so that was a great.
She's
secret.
Been signed for months now, and it wasn't even so much a secret. Like they signed her, and I was expecting after Charlotte Flair got announced with the injury that they were going to throw her in.
Yeah,
just throwing her on TV, and they didn't. They waited, and they have been patient and waited for the right moment, and I think this was the right moment. There has been some criticism directed at her from I think Meltzer had something negative to say, which I was like, just shut up, you old fart, you just dry empty fart, just shut up. But she was amazing. Jordan Grace, holy cow.
Yeah, what'd you think of her, man?
That, you know what, in the same way that I have said Rhea Ripley has it, I've only seen her for a few minutes, but I was like, I think she might have it.
Yeah.
And that to me is like, Impact is got to be glad that they have her. And honestly, if WWE can play nice with Impact and vice versa, and they can kind of share some talent, like there's talks of Bianca Belair maybe going to Impact and having a match there and working that. Dude, that'd be a great way for them to actually enhance that women's division, because Jordan Grace, star.
Well, and
no freaking doubt about it.
And what I thought was really very good of them and very cool of them to do is all the little things around her coming into the Rumble, like the announcers, you know, we're really pumping her up.
Oh yeah.
They gave her a moment with Naomi, and so I don't watch Impact at all, but I do, you know, I follow the wrestling websites. I follow what kind of goes on in the other the other promotions, and I knew that Naomi was rumored to be coming back. You know, she dropped the title to her, I think, a week or two ago at a pay-per-view. And so to give them a moment where they could just kind of in the fans too getting into it, because they know, you know, they're in this too.
Yeah. To
have that moment, and then right away for them just start beating the tar out of each other, I thought was just phenomenal. That was great. But you know, to give her as much, you know, she had so much time in the Rumble as well.
They did, and they gave her a lot of time, and they gave her a lot of leeway to look strong.
Yes.
Physically strong. Like her character was very strongly represented.
And this was something that always faltered under Vince, was this idea that his guys always had to look the best. Like, this is why the whole invasion angle fell apart, because Vince could not let WCW look strong. He could not let ECW look strong. Oh, absolutely.
That's
absolutely. All. And then you have Triple H, who not only from the booking that you saw, but then afterward in the post-event press conference, complimentary to TNA Impact
Mm-hmm.
for allowing her to come, complimentary to her for the talent that she is and her showing at the Rumble. And it's like, that's how simple it has to be. It's just like you don't have, it doesn't have to be this whatever Vince made it in the past. You know what I mean? Like it's very refreshing to see someone who can appreciate good talent, bring them in, let them shine on a stage they otherwise wouldn't have had an opportunity to, and let it be a spectacle for the fans and let the fans enjoy it.
Yep.
And
Like,
this is why I think Triple H does a really great job at this, is because I think he's very attuned to what wrestling fans want to see.
mm-hmm.
And why Vince failed so heinously over the last few years is because he is out of touch with what the fans want to see
and reality
and reality as a whole, apparently. So,
and morals, yeah. No, it was all good, and yeah. Where was I? Oh, another up. Becky Inch blessing Chelsea Green before eliminating her. That was beautiful. It was a beautiful little bit of business. Like I'm just like, and that's why she's a star.
Yeah.
I've said before, and I'll say it again. Like, I don't think her offense is the most believable, and I think sometimes she can look a little ridiculous, quite honestly. But at the end of the day, I still love that character, and I love her as a performer. So I mean, you take those little flaws, but the overall package is phenomenal. For me, the downs. You called it the Nia Jax Piper Niven black hole of charisma in the ring for a while.
I think I called it a black hole of suckitude.
Oh, it was just a vortex.
Vortex of suckitude is what I called it. Yeah, that's right.
Another down was the 50% of the ladies who got little to no reaction, which we've already kind of beaten that to death. Yeah. A down for me, like, not so much because I care one way or the other, because honestly, I don't know much about her as a wrestler or her character. But Chelsea Green's future in the Fed as a punching bag, apparently, or a tackling dummy. It was hilarious, but after a while, I'm like, how long before she's getting released? Like, how many days before she's future endeavored? Because this seems like a oh, is this what I'm doing? What do you have for ups and downs, sir?
You covered some of them. So yeah, I mean, I think universally Jade Cargill's debut was phenomenal. I think the fact that she took out Nia Jax was the right way to go. Like establish her physicality, her dominance.
Oh yeah, and that was one of the things that they held against her. Like Meltzer held against her. Like, oh yeah, she just tossed out Nia Jax. I'm like, first of all, thank you. Second of all.
Yeah,
like that's where you make someone look
for the
strong,
record, Dave Meltzer is a Young Bucks like fanboy, and I don't even listen to that guy.
Is he basically on the payroll for AEW?
I think so. But no, Cargill, great debut, great intro. They really showcased her well. I love the standoff between her and Belair. And
oh my gosh, the two
and
of
Belair
them.
not being the past, Belair being the present, but Jade being the future, and the two of them being equally, jack stacked and just really solid, performers. I think there's a real future there, for a good rivalry there. I am not a big fan.
Do you feel like, I mean, Cargill, you can't say she's a star. I don't think she's there yet, but there is like a raw charisma there. Like you just see her and you're like,
yeah, she's a star because of what she had done in the notoriety it brought her at AEW. But yes, she has to now kind of prove herself in WWE, and so absolutely. I am not a fan of Michael Cole, but Michael Cole made me laugh hysterically when it was a Chelsea Green or Tiffany Stratton or who the hell? Oh no, Maxine Dupree did a reverse worm, and the announcers are going back and like, what do we call this? And all of a sudden Michael Cole's like, the larva. And they're all just like, and then they lose it. Both McAfee and Graves just like lose it. They're like, yep, that's it. You got us. And
apparently, when Valkyrie came down, or no,
Valhalla, yeah,
we found out that Michael Cole has an antler fetish. I never would have guessed.
Apparently so.
I'm not going to look that up online. No. I don't need to mess up my algorithms.
No, you don't.
I'm even on private browsing. I'm not.
The authorities might come to your door.
either that or a bull moose. Like,
Sir,
hey,
you have a problem.
come with us.
During the match, I mean, there was a lot of highlights, but one thing that just stood out to me was just I love the simultaneous forward backward DDT that Becky Lynch did. That was she locked someone in the traditional forward DDT sort of lock headlock, and then she had someone in the old Sting Scorpion death drop sort of hold and laid them both in, and it was just phenomenal.
That was awesome.
R-Truth. Can we just agree he is a national treasure? This man comes running down in the middle of Valhalla's entrance and seems to think he's supposed to be in this match. Now, the only thing that was missing from this entire thing was him getting on a microphone, looking around at the crowd, at the referee, and everyone yelling at him, and just being like, "My bad."
Yeah.
That's the only thing that was missing from that, was having him do that.
Yeah.
But no, just great comedy to have him come. Like, the best part is he's like, he's being explained, this is a women's rumble. He's like, there's women? Like it's like, yes. I mean, it's just like, it was so well done. The way he does his shtick is just phenomenal. So, and then Bayley and Naomi as the Iron Women. Credit to Uncle Todd. He called it very early on that Bayley was going to be the Iron Woman of this match. And not only was she that, but she was also the winner at, I think she clocked in at 1 hour and 3. I believe.
Yeah, she broke Rhea's record from last year.
Yeah. So,
although, I mean, Naomi, I'm so glad they gave her. It's nice to see they gave her a very strong presence and really kept her in the match. I really appreciated how they might have done this in the past, but I'd never noticed it. They gave the times of how long the different participants had been in the Rumble.
Yeah. I don't think they did that last year. I don't remember that.
That was such a nice touch to see that and to
very
kind of
sports-like.
See 3 of them. Yeah.
Very sports-like. Very sports-like.
Naomi at times disappeared. Like, you could tell she powdered out and was like catching her breath off to the side of the ring or something. Because
I felt like a couple times she and Jordan Grace were off in the corner, just swapping stories of what they've been doing the last 2 weeks. You know what I mean? Just sitting in the corner.
They might have been under the ring having a hot dog or popcorn or something. I don't know what it was, but like they were like, she was just not in the ring at all.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, when did Naomi get eliminated? And then all of a sudden she's back. I'm like, am I hallucinating? What's going on?
Yeah.
But no, that was really good to see.
My downs were and Uncle Todd and I were both watching this live, so we were texting each other. But and I hate to say this because I am a very big supporter of them elevating women's wrestling and women as a whole. But something was off. I don't know if it was towards the beginning of the match. The rhythm of the women in the match was just off, and I don't know if it was just a coordination thing or what was going on, but rhythmically, things were not clicking. Like they were trying to do spots, and you could see them calling them, and it was just like everyone was. I don't know if it was nerves or what it was, but something was off.
I think especially in the opening 3.
Yes.
Given the amount of experience of those 3 ladies, it should have gone a lot smoother. I think the fact that Naomi being back and maybe not, even though, I mean, she's worked with these women before.
Yeah.
But maybe just the recency of having been with a different group and maybe operating at a different speed and coming back here and the adrenaline and everything else. There were definitely times where she was so far ahead and was obviously waiting for somebody to do the move and things like that. And it was very clunky.
Although, but then Jordan comes in, Jordan Grace, who's not even in this promotion.
Yeah. And
came from where Naomi came from. And she looked way crisper than any of the other ladies who came in the beginning. I mean, she
granted.
So
I think it's just a matter of, it's just the way things are. Because I mean, I could have said that about any of the last 2 or 3 men's Rumble matches. And the last like 2 or 3 years when we've done these reviews, I have consistently rated the women's matches above the men's because it was smoother.
Yep.
So I mean, maybe it was just their year to have a rough beginning. Once they got about 15, 16. Things started smoothing out. Like by the middle of the Rumble, they were really hitting their stride.
But my LVP for the women's Rumble is by far Piper Niven, and when I say LVP, I mean this in the strongest terms possible, because literally I saw at least 3 or 4 occasions of she was walking around the ring, and one of the other women had a woman on her shoulder with her feet kind of off to the side and swung them so that they grazed Piper's hair. And Piper sold it like she was like shot. You know what I mean? Oh, there we go.
By the way, we're recording video now, so the YouTube just saw you walk in with your towel.
I doubt that.
The babushka.
Tim did. So, you going to bed?
Yeah.
All right. Good night.
Otherwise, I'm reading for 30 minutes.
Okay. Love you. Ladies and gentlemen, Kaylin.
Not just Kaylin, but crackling Kaylin. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like,
but
Niven was just like, I don't know what her deal was, but she was like selling when she shouldn't have been selling and not selling when she should have, and it was just I don't know. I felt bad for her, but it was at the same time like, my God, you're a professional. Come on now.
LVP for me goes to Nia Jax.
Well,
sorry
for you. That's just on principle.
It's when you're trying to put over so hard, like,
yes.
Oh, this run for Nia Jax is different. I'm like, no, it's not. And especially then when she unceremoniously drops Shayna Baszler like a sack of potatoes outside of the ring.
Yeah.
Like, oh, look at that. Same old Nia Jax, still ready to hurt anybody at the drop of a hat.
Yep.
And he had it all. Like, no, it's not. Like, I just don't believe in her. I don't believe her character. She, like, I cannot stand her character.
Yeah.
Like she could be believable as like this, this killer, this just killer heel, except her facial expressions are terrible. Even like her body language is terrible. Her promos are unbelievable. Like the entire thing, like Corny went off on this whole thing. And I'm like, yeah, he's going a lot overboard in some areas than I would, but yeah, it's like, it's not just like anything in particular. Like I just don't buy it.
Yeah.
And I never have. Like even when she was with Shayna Baszler, like her facial expressions, everything was just not good. And I get why they have her, and I get why they're trying to make it work, because they want somebody to be physically imposing, and they want variety in who's on the roster and all that. You've got a lot of ladies who are, I mean, quite honestly, like Ivy Nile, Liv Morgan, like that kind of size. Nothing wrong with that. They're hell of performers, but you also want to have some folks who are a little bit taller, who are more, jacked and athletic, and then you want some folks who are just like big and imposing. And she fits the bill, except she undermines it at every other turn.
Right.
It's like,
yeah,
okay, and hey, she'll probably always have a job as long as she wants, because it's sort of like the NBA. Like you can't coach height, you can't coach someone to be 7'1", so you'll always be gainfully employed. You might be making the league minimum, but you're going to have a job.
Yeah.
But
I
anyways,
agree.
I gave the Ladies Rumble a 2.5. I was right down the middle for me. And that's kind of painful, because I think I've been around 3.5 most of the other years I've watched this.
I gave it a 3 because, to your point, I think as it wore on, it got a little better. I liked what they did with like the Jordan Grace stuff was what really won me over, because they just have how nice of a job they did with her. When she was eliminated, it was done, I think, in a classy fashion. She had a good back and forth with Bianca, who would be considered a contemporary of hers, and Bianca just got the better of her, and she did it in pretty devastating fashion. I mean, like, Jordan took a KOD on the side of the ring, which, I don't know how she protected herself. I'm sure they have a way, there's got to be a way of doing it, otherwise they wouldn't have done it. But it was a pretty nasty way for her to get eliminated, and yet I think it's a badge of honor in a way.
Yes.
Jade's debut is great. I think the way they were, both Rumbles had great options for potential winners, and so I did not see Bayley coming out of this as a winner. I thought it was going to be Becky Lynch to challenge Rhea Ripley, but I'm happy with Bayley. I think there's a great story to be told there. I'm kind of hoping she's going to go against the grain and challenge Io Sky for her women's championship.
That's the rumor right now. Is
So
that will be the choice.
I think that would be great. So yeah, overall I gave it a 3.0. I thought it was slightly above average, but I couldn't go much beyond that because the beginning really, I mean, the first half of it just really bothered me, just how clunky it all was. It just didn't feel like a well put together match, from the women's side of things. So
yeah. I will say this: they did read the room very well, and were very ahead of the curve because as soon as Bayley came out, she was getting chants.
Yeah, yep,
and she's a heel.
Yeah,
I mean, Damage Control is a heel faction.
Yep,
and Bayley's getting chants. I'm like, that is pretty cool.
Well, and that's because there's an organic, sort of, swelling for her that's going on with the fan base because they're counting down the seconds until the rest of the faction turns on her. So it's one of those things that they see it coming from left field, but they just they're slow rolling it. So
it's like every time Sting joins a faction, it's like, okay, and the clock is running on when someone's going to betray Sting.
Yes,
and he never sees it coming.
Yes, absolutely.